Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how to sew this flare dress with a placket and a bishop collar. This is a very interesting video, so you're going to learn a lot from it. The first thing I did was I have 2.5 yards of fabric right here. I'll just open it up and this is what it looks like. This is a crepe fabric, so I'll just place it on fold like so. So at this point I transferred it to the floor because my table was too small for this tutorial. So I'll just place it on fold like I said, and you go ahead and fold it further, forming this triangle as you see me do. So just hold it at the tip like so and then fold it to the other side, and by the time you're done, this is what it should look like. It should have 4 different pieces like so, and when you open it up, this is what it should look like. So at this point now I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2. I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2, and I got 7 inches plus half an inch, which is 7.5 inches. So from that triangle point I'm going to look for 7.5 inches, and when I find that 7.5 inches I will draw a straight line for the shoulder. So from this shoulder line I'll go down by 8 inches. That is my chest line measurement. So if you don't know your chest line, just minus 2 inches from your bust line, and that is your chest line measurement. So I'll just go ahead and mark 8 inches from the shoulder line, and from on this 8 inches I'll go ahead and draw a straight line, and then after that I'll just go ahead and mark the same 7.5 inch on the chest line measurement. So after marking 7.5, I'll still go ahead and cut out my bust measurements, and I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. So at this point now I'll use my straight rule to connect the 7.5 inch from the chest line all the way to the shoulder line to draw a straight line. Then after that I'm just making sure that it's exactly the measurements that I marked. Okay, so now from this point I'll go down by 1 inch. At this point now I'll just go ahead and mark 2.5 inch for my neck width. Normally my neck width is 3 inches, but I will minus half an inch for it because of the sewing allowance. So I'm marking 2.5 inches for the neck width, and I'll connect it to the 1 inch point. While from this point I'll just divide this line by 2, and I'll go ahead and draw a curve connecting it to the bust measurements. So now is to determine the length of the dress. So from the triangle point to the shoulder is 9 inch. The length of this dress, as you can see from the thumbnail, the dress has 2 sections. So the first section is, the length of it is 38 inches that I decided to use. So I'll just add 38 to the 9 inches that we got earlier. So at this point I am marking 45 inches at this point. So you're just going to mark from one point to the next. Just pay attention to how I place my measuring tape. I place it at the tip of the triangle, and I am connecting it all the way to the other side. If you notice, when we reach the other side, the fabric is not enough, but during the course of the video I'll show you how you can extend the fabric so that you can get the exact length that you are looking for. So at this point I'll just go ahead and connect it to the chest line from that bust area like so. So next I'll be marking the neck width. So for the back I'm using 1 inch, while for the front I'm using 2.5 inch like so. So I'll just go ahead and connect it to the neck width measurements. So I'll connect for the back first, and then I'll connect for the front like so. So after this I'll just go ahead and cut it out like so, following the lines that I drew earlier. So after cutting now, I'll go ahead and add half an inch sewing allowance to the shoulder line. From that point, as you can see me do, just add half an inch to it so that you'll be able to use that to join the back to the front. So for that part of the dress that is not long enough, that the fabric is not long enough, I'll just bring another fabric and I'll be joining it at the hemline point. So I'll just join, I have 2 pieces of fabric here, so I'll be joining one for the front and then the other one for the back. So I'll just go ahead and trace out the remaining line that we're supposed to have for the dress. So I'll just compare it to the other side. The other side is 3 inches longer than this side, so I'll just go ahead and mark 3 inches on this point, and then I'll use my straight rule and connect it like this, and then I'll cut the curve out. So when I'm done, I'll just go ahead and take it to the sewing machine, and I'll sew it using 0.25 inch sewing allowance, and I'll iron it very well so that it will be very clean. So at this point, I'll go ahead and separate the back from the front, and then from here I'll just go ahead and cut out the neckline for the back, and this will be for the front. Another thing I'll do also is to go in by 0.5 inch from that armhole area for the front. And at this point, I'm going to be drafting the sleeve. And in order to do this, I'm just going to divide my bust measurement by 12, and I'll add 1.5 inch to it. So I'll go ahead and mark whatever I get from that point, and then on this point now I'll minus 1 inch from my chest line, and I'll add half an inch for sewing allowance. So my chest line is 8 minus 1 inch, that is 7, plus half an inch, that is 7.5. So at this point also, I'll just go ahead and take the midpoints from one distance to the next, and then I'll go up by half an inch from that point, and I'll just go ahead and connect it to the midpoint of the sleeve like so, all the way to the other end. So after that, I'll determine the length of this sleeve. I want to use 12 inch as the length of the sleeve, so I'll just go ahead and mark my 12 inch. So from that 12 inch point, I'll be marking the width of the sleeve. So just go ahead and take your width measurement at that point and mark it on the fabric like so. So after that, you just go ahead and connect it. So at this point, I made a mistake and connected it directly to the 7 inches, but while I was cutting, I extended it to the 7.5. So don't make the same mistake. Just go ahead and connect it directly to your sewing allowance. Then after that, just like the front, I'll go ahead and go in by 0.5 inch. Just like what we did for the dress, I'll do the same thing for the sleeve. So right here, I have 2 pieces of fabric that I'll be using for the plackets. One is bigger than the other. So one is 2.5 inch wide, while the other is 2 inch wide. So for the one that is bigger, I'll go in by half an inch. I have my pressing iron here with me, so I'll just go ahead and press it down. So just go in by half an inch and press it down all the way to the other end. So the length of the placket, the length of the fabric is dependent on how long you want the plackets to be. So right here I have about 20 inches long. At the end of the day, I cut the excess out. Okay, so it's better for it to be too long than when it is too short. So the length of the fabric is 20 inches that I used. So after ironing it out, I'll go ahead and fold it in again using 1 inch this time around. So the first one is half an inch, while the second one is 1 inch. So I'll just go ahead and iron it again like so. So I'll iron it from one end all the way to the other end. Just take your time. So before I forget, for this one that I'm ironing now, I added paper gum to it. Please add paper gum to it. While for the smaller one, I added hairstay to it. So for this one is the one that will be outside, while the one that I added hairstay, that is the smaller one, will be inside. So after this, I'll still go in by half an inch. But as you can see, as I'm going in by half an inch, I made sure that there is excess, like I did not go all the way inside. I made sure that the one that is down is about 0.1 inch longer than the one that is up. So when you are ironing it, make sure that the one that is down is about 0.1 inch longer than the one that is up. So that one that is down is what will be facing down on the dress, while the one that is up is what will be coming outside, that is will be showing outside of the dress. You're going to see this. I'm going to explain this further as during the course of the video, but just do exactly what I'm doing right now. So for the smaller piece of the fabric, I'll go ahead and do the same thing that I did for the first one, but this time around, this one will be small. So I'll go ahead and mark and fold in half an inch inward. I'll iron it very well so that it will be in place, and then I'll go in by 0.75 inch. This is not up to 1 inch, it's about 0.75 inch. So I'll just go ahead and iron it as well. Then the remaining one, I'll fold it in, but just like we did for the first one, this one, the one that is down, will be about 0.1 inch longer than the one that is up. So after that, this is the front part of the dress. So I'll just go ahead and open it up, and this is what it looks like. So at this point, I'll go ahead and find the midpoint of the dress. So make sure it's the midpoint that you are marking. So just from that neckline point, connect all the way to about 9 inches. From that neckline, connect all the way to 9 inches. So it depends on how long you want it to be, but I think 9 inches is just fine. So after that, I'll just go ahead and draw a straight line like so. So after drawing the straight line, I'll go ahead and cut it open. So when you're done, this is what it should look like. So the next thing that we are going to do now is that piece that we just ironed. I'm going to be sewing it on top of the dress now. So in order to do this, I'm going to be working on the smaller one first. After that, I'll be working on the bigger one. Okay, so this bigger one will be at the right hand side, while the smaller one will be at the left hand side, depending on where you're seeing it from. Okay, so the smaller one now, in order to join it to the fabric, that is to the plain fabric, the part that is longer will be below it, so that when we are sewing, that part that is longer will be able to sew on it. So I'll just go ahead and fold it like so. So you're going to fold, just do exactly what I'm doing, just fold it like so, forming the triangle. With this way, you can easily fit the pattern, that is the Ankara fabric, onto the plain fabric. If you don't do it this way, you'll not be able to arrange it on the plain fabric. So just go ahead and fold it like so, forming the triangle, and then you can easily join it to the main fabric like this. See the way it's appearing right now, because I was able to fold it. So now I'll just take it to my sewing machine and I'll sew very close to the edge of the fabric. So at this point, I'm done sewing it, and this is what it looks like. So because that part is longer, that is the down part is longer, I was able to easily sew it onto the left side of the dress. Okay, that's the reason why one side should be longer than the other. So after sewing, you just go ahead and cut off the excess. As you can see, the fabric is way longer than what I need, but it's still better for it to be longer than for it to be shorter. Okay, so the next thing to do now is to attach the bigger placket, that is the bigger fabric, onto the opening to form that placket. Okay, so in order to do this, I'll just go ahead and open this up. So like the smaller one, the part that is longer will be down, while the part that is shorter will be up. Okay, so in order to attach this to the plain fabric, I'm just going to open this up like so. So I have my pencil here that I'll be tracing out the line that I need. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and open it up like so. So the part that is longer is the part that we are working with. Okay, so now from that part that is longer, that is not on the half inch, on the 1 inch point, just go ahead and mark 1 inch from the top of the fabric. So after marking 1 inch from that top of the fabric, I'll still go ahead and mark the 9 inch. Remember, we use 9 inch for the opening of the placket. That is the opening that we need. So I'll just go ahead, after marking the 1 inch, I'll go ahead from that 1 inch point, I will mark 9 inches, which is what we use while opening the dress for the front. So I'll just go ahead and mark the 9 inches point. So after marking it, this part can be a bit confusing, so just pay attention to exactly what I am doing and you get it perfectly well. So after marking it, you are just going to go ahead, and that part that is 1 inch, we are going to cut through it. We are not cutting through the half an inch, we are cutting through the 1 inch points, and it's not on the main fabric, that is the main side, is on the part that will be on the downside of the dress, that is the longer part. So I'll just go ahead and cut it at the midpoint. So from the downside of the fabric, I'm just going to open it up like so, cutting it from the midpoint. You're going to be cutting, and you will stop exactly at that 9-inch point that we just traced out earlier. So just stop exactly at that 9-inch point. Please don't go beyond it, okay? So after you stop at that 9-inch point, you just go ahead and cut it out like so. So you slant it and cut it out like so. So I'm just going to remove that part now. So the next thing now, I'll just fold this part inward like so. So just pay attention, pay attention to how I'm doing it. So I'll fold it inward like so, and I'll turn it to the right side, and this is what it should look like from the wrong side, okay? This is what it should look like. So I'm going to repeat the same process so that you see exactly what I did. So I'll open it up again just to show you what I did. I'll open it up, and this is what it looks like when you open it up. So in order to fold it in, I'll just go ahead and fold that sharp edge like so. I'll go ahead and fold that sharp edge like so, and I'll fold it back in like so. So I'll go ahead and cut out the excess because we don't need that point. So I'll just go ahead and cut it off. So just look at and pay attention to where I am cutting. Okay, I'm cutting the 1/2 inch point alone. I'm not cutting the 1-inch point. Is that 1/2 inch sewing allowance I'm cutting out, so that that place will not be too bulky when we are sewing. You know, it will lay flat on the fabric. That's why I'm cutting it out. If not, you can leave it the way it is. So I'll just go ahead and fold it back in like so, and this is what we have here. So we are done with this part. So the next thing, I'm just going to be attaching it to the dress. And in order to do this, the part that is longer, as usual, will be at the down part of the dress, that is at the back side of the dress. So I'll just go ahead and place it like so, as usual, using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So we are just going to be joining it to the plain fabric like so. So if you are joining it correctly, you should have 1-inch sewing allowance from that neckline point. Remember, we used 1 inch first before 9-inch. So if you are placing it correctly, there should be extra 1-inch points from the neckline point. So just make sure you don't squeeze the fabric. You place it exactly how it's supposed to be. The allowance that you are going to be using is 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So you just close it up like so, and this is what it looks like. So you see everything is straight, the fabric is not squeezed at the down part. So you just go ahead and sew it very close to the edge of it. So I've taken this to the sewing machine now, and I'm just going to show you how to sew it. So at this point, I've already sewn from the neckline points all the way down to the 9-inch point. Okay, so I made sure I sewed very close to the end of the fabric like so, and pay attention to how the bigger fabric is lying over the smaller one. The opening there is closed, is not, and if I'm sewing and it's opening, I just go ahead and make sure that I close it back again. Okay, so, and make sure that the plain fabric is straight so that your work will come out very clean. So you just continue sewing and make sure that you are sewing at the middle of the dress. Okay, so you can draw a straight line to make sure that you are following the line while you are sewing. So when you sew and you reach the particular length that you want the placket to stop, just go ahead and cut off the excess like so. So after cutting the excess, what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to fold this in like so, using 0.25 inch sewing allowance, and then I'll fold it further, forming a triangle at one point, and I'll fold it also at the left side, forming a triangle. So this is what it should look like. It should look like by the time you're done. So I'll just open this up again. I'll fold it, forming a triangle, and I'll fold it again, forming another triangle. So first you fold it inward before you form the left and the right triangle. So after that, you just go ahead and continue sewing. this part of the dress is supposed to be very clean, so make sure you sew as slowly as you can. If you can be fast and get a neat work, go ahead and sew. Just use the pace that works for you. Okay, so when I sew one point, I'll just turn it to the other side and I'll continue sewing. So I even went ahead to use my seam ripper to arrange it exactly how I want it to be, so that the triangle will be well formed. So when you reach that sharp edge, you just turn it to the other side like so. Make sure you arrange the fabric very well, and then you continue sewing upward. So as you can see, I'm closing it, so I'm going to continue sewing up until I even pass the 9-inch points that I created. Okay, so when I reach the particular length that I want the opening to start from, I'll just go ahead and sew to the other end like so, to close up that opening. And this is it. So I'll just go ahead and cut it out, that is, cut the thread. And at this point, I'll just go ahead and continue the sewing to the neckline of the dress. And this is it. As you can see, there's a 1-inch sewing allowance, and by the time I'm done, this can close very easily. Okay, and look at what it looks like from the inside. It's also very clean from the inside. So now at this point, I'll just go ahead and join the shoulder line of the front to the shoulder line of the back. So I'll use the sewing allowance that we left, which is 1/2 inch sewing allowance. And I'll also join it at the side seam. So I'll join the back to the front at the side seam using the sewing allowance that we left while cutting. So after joining the back to the front and I turn it to the right side, this is what it looks like. I've even gone ahead to iron it clean so that it will look very neat. So at this point now, the next thing is to join the down part of the dress. There is that gathers to the dress. So in order to do this, I'll be measuring from the side seam of the front all the way to the other side. So I'll measure for the front first and I'll measure for the back. The front and the back is the same thing, okay, because we cut both of them equally. So I'll just measure for the front first, back. So for the front, after measuring and up to my 60 inches point, I'll go ahead and start from 1 inch again, and the total that I got is 76 inches. So that means the length of my fabric should be nothing less than 76 inches. You can times your 76 inches by 2. So the total length of the fabric can be about 140 inches length, but mine is not up to 140 though, because I was managing the fabric. But so at this point, you just go ahead and run a gather stitch on the up part, and then you hem the down part of the fabric. So at this point, after running the gather stitch and hemming it, I'll just go ahead and join it to the front. So I'll do the same thing for the back as well. I'll measure it, cut the excess, hem and run the gather stitch, and I'll attach it. So after joining it for the front and for the back, I'll now close it at the side seam. At this point, just go ahead and cut off that 1 inch excess that we have there, and then after that, I'll just go ahead and measure round the neckline of the dress. So I'll measure from the front through the back all the way to the other side of the plackets like so. So I got about 18 inches. So I'm using 18 inches to draft the pattern of this, of the bishop collar. So I have my collar gum here and I've placed it on fold, and then after that I'll draw a straight line like so. So from the fold, from the part that is on fold all the way to the other side is about 10 inches, which is more than what I need. So I'll just go ahead and divide my 18 inches by 2, which is 9 inches. So I'll just mark the 9 inches there, and then that 9 inch I'll minus 3 inches from it, which is 6. So I'll just go ahead and mark the 6 inches point also from there. So from that 9 inches point, I'll go up by half an inch and I'll connect it to the 6 inches point. The reason why I'm doing this is to form that curve that you can see on a bishop collar. Okay, so just go ahead and raise it up by half an inch, and this is what we have here. So at this point, I'll be determining the length of the bishop collar. I want it to be 1 inch long, so I'll just go ahead and mark 1 inch from that point, and then that 6 inch point I'll mark 1 inch as well, and then I'll mark 1 inch here just to make sure that the collar is straight on all sides. So I'll just go ahead and mark 1 inch and I'll connect it all the way to the other end. So at this point, you can go ahead and smoothen it up so that it will not be too sharp at that curved area point, and I'll go ahead and connect it like so. So at this point, also go ahead and curve it to form that curved shape that you can see on a bishop collar. So just go ahead. This is optional though, but it's usually more beautiful when you do it this way. So at this point, just go ahead and cut off the excess. So after doing this, by the time you open this up, this is what it looks like so. So when you fold it up, you'll be having a perfect bishop collar at this point. So now I'm just going to place this on the fabric. So the part that is shining, I'm going to be placing it on the wrong side of the fabric like so. So I'll just go ahead and iron it from the top of the fabric. Make sure you have enough excess. Like you can see, I do not place it on top of the fabric. I gave 6 inches space from the top of the fabric. And when you are cutting, make sure you leave about 1 inch on the down part of the collar. Okay, just leave 1 inch and then cut off the excess like this. So after cutting it off, I'm just going to be folding that 1 inch extra that we left. I'll just fold it inward like so, and I'll iron it. Just fold it inward and iron it. So after ironing it, I'll just take it to the sewing machine and I'll sew on it using half an inch sewing allowance. So I'll sew from one curve point all the way to the next like so. So at this point, I'm done sewing using half an inch sewing allowance. I'll just go ahead and cut off the excess. So after cutting off the excess, this is what it looks like. So at this point, I'll turn it to the right side like so, and I'll fold it in like so. So when you're folding it, make sure you leave about 1 inch allowance from that point, because we'll be using it to close the other side of the collar. So I'll just go ahead and sew from one curve end all the way to the other curve end like so. So I'll be sewing it very close to the collar gum, but not on the collar gum. So you can use 0.1 inch away from the collar gum. Just follow the line and sew like so, and this is what it looks like. So at this point, I've also gone ahead to cut out the excess, and I use 0.25 inch sewing allowance away from the collar gum like so. So at this point, when you cut off the excess, you just turn it to the right side, and this is what it looks like. Sorry, I did not show when I was cutting. I did not know it was enough videoing. So when you turn it to the right side, go ahead and press it very well. At this point now, I'll just go ahead and cut off the excess. Okay, so I'll be using just 0.5 inch sewing allowance, and this point out, that excess, that 0.5 inch, I'll be using it to join to the dress. At this point now, I'll just go ahead and join the sleeve to the dress at the armhole area. So from the wrong side of the dress, I'll be joining it to the 0.5 inch sewing allowance. So I'll be joining the collar using 0.5 inch sewing allowance from the wrong side. Okay, so after joining it using 0.5 inch sewing allowance, I'll now turn it to the right side like so. So you turn it to the right side, and this is what it looks like. So just go ahead and fold in the half an inch sewing allowance inside of the collar. So just go ahead and fold it on the other side as well, and this is what it looks like. So just after that, I'll just go ahead and top stitch it all around, very close to the edge of the fabric. So at this point, I'm done top stitching. There was no light, so I could not iron it very well, but I was done top stitching, and this is what it looks like. I've also gone ahead to join the down part of the dress. So as you can see, the side seam for the back, I joined it to the side seam for the front. And that will be all for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching.